Is the hype real? Are they the next best thing? Or are they just another super shoe? It's time to talk about the PUMA Fast R Nitro Elite 3. So welcome back to another first run video. Really excited to bring this one to you. Got a really good workout done in this shoe and a potential race lined up later this week. Today, as with all first run videos, we'll be diving into how I tested them, give you guys a quick technical overview, and then of course dive in to my first impressions. Quick disclaimer, this is a pair of shoes that I purchased with my own money, no discounts, paid the full £260, stayed up till midnight on Wednesday the 28th of May for this minty fresh drop. So with that out of the way, let's dive into how I tested them. So I managed to get a good variety of paces tested in this shoe. I was currently on a down week when these things showed up, but I'd done 3 nice easy runs leading up to this, so I thought I'd just switch things out and get a good workout done in them. So in terms of the workout, that looked like a nice solid 3K effort at the start, in and around marathon effort. Nothing fancy there, just wanted to see how it felt cruising along at that pace, and it was absolutely dreamy. After that, I rolled into 2 sets of 2K off of 90 seconds, 1K off of 90 seconds. So all the reps had 90-second rest. The 2Ks were around that half marathon effort, so I wanted to push those down to in and around the 5:30s per mile. And then the K reps I had license to push. So what ended up happening was a nice 5:37-ish rep for the first 2K, and then I pushed down to a 3:12 per K 1K rep, so that is 16 flat 5K pace. I then picked it up in the second set. I think the second 2K rep was around a 5:28 per mile, and then I really did let rip on the final K and ran 4:58 pace per mile for the final K, which transpired to be a 3:04 kilometre. Ticked all the boxes, really happy with how it felt, and it just got better as things got faster. We'll get into more of that shortly. Let's dive into the tech. Going to start off by saying I went true to size in this shoe, as per every other PUMA shoe I ever purchased, UK size 13. It comes in at a featherweight, 231 grams or 8.1 ounces for reference, because I know I refer to things in a UK size 13. Vaporflies, Saucony Endorphin Elites, PUMA Deviate Nitro Elite 3, those are all 250 grams and above. I think the Vaporfly one was in and around the 240 high number. And just for reference, it's pretty close to what the Streakfly 2 is as well, which is extremely exciting, only a few grams heavier. We're talking about 40 millimeters of stack height in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, meaning we have that classic 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. And now let's roll into everything else that's going on with this shoe. So if we look at the top half of the shoe, we've got Ultra Weave running all the way around, which is this super lightweight material that you guys can see through. It is honestly featherweight and one of the most comfortable uppers in a racing shoe that I have tested. It's not too tight, but it is so light and airy. There is really no structure to this at all, as you would expect. However, there are some overlays and slight padding in and around the heel counter, which is really impressive that they've got the amount of padding that they have in here, considering how lightweight the shoe is. Obviously, they've saved weight elsewhere, and we'll talk about that in a bit. This padding around the heel counter and ankle collar is really nice. It is very, very comfortable. A lot of racing shoes tend to skimp on the weight around here, and everything is very thin and very flexible. This is also flexible, but there is a little bit of structure there too, so it does feel quite secure. But as you can see below this bumper padding, we've got the Ultra Weave here that is super thin and runs all the way around. The only other reinforcement that we've got really is around the toe box area and up the lacing section too. The tongue is probably the lightest tongue I've ever seen on any racing shoe. I feel like I could literally just tear it. It's got kind of this laminate that runs around the edge of the tongue just to kind of make sure nothing frays, but again, it just seems to be using Ultra Weave all the way down. Surprisingly, I didn't get any lace bite on the top of the foot, which I kind of expected because there literally is no padding along the top here. The tongue is not gusseted. Again, it's held in place just by a loop that's sewn onto the top of the tongue there, and that was absolutely fine. It did not move left to right, and it felt really good. As I said, the upper in general is a very nice fitting upper. I love this ultra weave material in general, but it fits very nicely over the top, snug, but it certainly doesn't feel tight, and very breathable indeed. But this is where the magic happens in the Nitro Foam Elite. So that's what this shoe is using, and it's not dual density. There are sections of it, of course, as you can see, especially on the medial side here. There's a bit more of a cutout than there is on the lateral, and you can see the plate placement that runs here. The plate extends beyond the end of the shoe, which is what this is, and there is a bit of extra rubber on the end there, but you'll see here the plate scoops down here. It's quite low to the ground, but then it has that lovely gentle scoop back up under the arch, which is something that I have very much appreciated in the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. I find that Puma have got that curve absolutely spot on. In the Vaporflies, we've seen it where it cuts much more aggressively up under the arch, and I think what a lot of us used to find in the first few runs in particular, a little bit of arch discomfort before things started to settle down. Never an issue in this shoe because it just scoops up much more gently under the arch and runs up to the back here. So there are sections of the midsole pieced together. As you can see, the back here has its own section where it sits below the plate, and then you've got this big chunk that sits on the top, plus this section underneath here. And to finish it all off, we've got Puma Grip, which of course we all know is absolutely fantastic, and I can confirm it is very grippy and tacky, despite what looks like a very much lack of tread there. It feels very tacky to the ground. We've got that exposed carbon plate here, which we'll come to shortly, because I swear I nearly snapped this thing on the first run, and then a bit of rubber coverage at the back here on the outer pads. And that is it for the tech. So with all that out of the way, how did I find the shoe on its first run? Well, it absolutely blew my mind, and I can say that this is the future of super shoes. So if you guys know, you'll see that I've been using the Deviate Nitro Elite pretty much all year. It has been incredible, to the point where when I popped some Vaporfly 2s on the other day in a workout just to remind myself what they felt like, I instantly thought within the first rep, gosh, I wish I was wearing the Pumas. It's much more of a natural feeling. You get all the propulsion that you need. You get all the comfort, all the cushioning, but it feels much less aggressive under the midfoot, and it's always a much more comfortable experience. Well, this thing takes it to the next level, but there are a couple of things that you guys need to watch out for. And before I tell you what those are, I just want to wax lyrical about how incredible this is. If you like the Deviate Nitro Elite, then I strongly feel like you're going to love this. Now, what we have to remember here, just in case you're new to the Puma lineup, this is not a successor to the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. Puma, like other shoe companies, have two lines of super shoes. The Fast R has had 3 iterations. This is number 3. The Deviate Nitro Elite has also had 3 iterations. So this isn't necessarily the step up from the Deviate Nitro Elite. That will probably have its own upgrade at some point. But if you like that shoe, this is really, really good. I found all paces to be absolutely incredible. I was blown away at marathon effort, to be honest with you. It was insane. Now, I will just say, check out the extra channel in the description below. I posted the full workout video over there. That'll be going live in the next 12-24 hours. So when you've seen this at the end, head down into the description, click through to that one, and hang around there until that video's live, because you can see everything that I was going through throughout that workout. It was very hot and humid, so I wasn't expecting the most incredible of stats. I wasn't expecting to walk away from this run going, oh my gosh, my heart rate is so low. Sadly, the temperatures were not playing ball. However, the effortlessness of the paces was amazing. So marathon pace was great. Half marathon pace actually surprised me the most. 5:30s have never felt so comfortable, and then of course cruising down to 5:20s. Yes, I started to just start to work a bit more, but it still felt really, really good. And then of course ripping those faster Ks. Well, the 16-minute flat 5K, the 3:12, that was fantastic, but running a sub 5-minute K, I've never done that in training. Now don't get me wrong, I could probably do it in plenty of shoes. I'm not just saying it was this shoe, but the feeling you get from this, the feeling that you just want to go, you want to move, you want to shift, the bounce under the forefoot here is just absolutely incredible. It's like nothing I've experienced. I thought the Deviate Nitro Elite 3 was good, but this honestly takes it to that next level. So if you've spoken to a few people within that sub 3 project leading it to Boston or to London like I have, and you heard their thoughts, which I have, and they've all shouted from the rooftops about this shoe, and then you've seen loads of other people being sent these shoes and you're wondering, oh, are they saying nice things because they've been sent it, or are they really that good? I can tell you from a brutally honest perspective, after just one run, paying with it with my own money, yes, This is worth the hype, this is the future. But two things to bear in mind with this shoe. Number one, it definitely feels clunky on the warm-up and the cool-down, and you just have to be a bit careful here with this heel. Just like probably a lot of people, not everyone, but like a lot of people, I very much am much more up on my midfoot and forefoot when I'm doing my reps and running at faster paces. That's why I found the shoe came alive when I was hitting those top-end speeds. But when I'm jogging in my easy warm-ups and cool-downs, I do find I'm much more back in the midfoot. I did notice that slight instability as I was landing. Look, the shoe kind of wanted to tip me backwards, but then I had to really kind of like think about rolling forwards. I did notice that a little bit. Again, I don't want to pigeonhole this type of shoe, but I will just say this, heel strikers beware. And as a side note, don't be put off by whatever pace you run. Don't think this is just an elite shoe. I'm a strong believer that shoes aren't made for specific paces. I know sometimes we're marketed to like that. From my perspective, I think it's more about where you strike in the shoe. I think you won't get the most of it if you strike at the back, so that's why I wanted to say that. And number two, the laces. Puma came through. They send 2 pairs of laces. When I put these on, these are what comes standard with the shoe. It's the soft type of material. I actually didn't have any issues, but when I laced up, I was so disappointed to get these type of laces, because of course these can be the stretchy, spongy ones that don't give you a good lockdown. I had a good lockdown in them, but when I saw they put in these bitey laces, as I like to call them, with sort of ridges down the side where you can really lock down, I thought brilliant. So they've solved 2 issues there. And actually something else that I really need to mention, that as I said earlier on, I thought I'd snap the carbon plate. So obviously you saw from the workout footage, I was out on the tarmac, on the concrete, but there were some bits of loose gravel here and there. What you'll find when you're running in this shoe is actually this exposed carbon plate can be quite noisy if you go over a stone. Of course, you're not going to snap it, but where I run, there is a cattle grid which is filled up, and as I was running over that cattle grid, the noise, one of the metal bars must have literally gone right through here, because I genuinely thought like I'd snapped it, and I actually had to, I was very close to the end of the rep, but as soon as I finished that rep, I quickly checked the shoe to make sure it hadn't, and it hadn't. But I do think that this will scare a few people, especially if you're running in areas that are tarmacked but does have a bit of gravel, bit of loose stone here and there that you might accidentally run over. So yes, this bit can be a little bit noisy. Otherwise, absolutely effortless. And as I said, potentially a racing test for me later this week. I'm hopefully going to go back to Hereford for the final 5K, just coming off a down week, so not expecting too much from myself. However, I will give these shoes a debut. Sadly, they bumped the Street Fly back a bit. I want to get these things out on a test, so make sure you stick around to the channel and find out how I get on with those. I'll give you more feedback when I put them through a race test. And other than that, I want to hear from you guys. Have you managed to pick up a pair of these just yet? Now, I've talked in previous videos about limited drops. I've always been a fan of kind of doing a little bit of a drip feed at the start, where you do one limited drop just to build a bit of hype and then do a big main release. I think that's okay, and from a marketing standpoint, I understand why they do that. This seemed to be a second limited drop from them, so I'm not a huge fan of that. Yes, I got sucked in. Yes, I stayed up to midnight. Yes, I wanted to grab a pair, but I think I'm going to see a lot of comments down here saying we haven't been able to get our hands on a pair just yet, and I really do hope they do a main drop soon, because I think the more people that can get their hands on this shoe, the more Puma's reputation is absolutely going to skyrocket. They are honestly leaving competitors in the dust, and I do think there'll be a lot of brands scrambling around right now, having seen the launch of this shoe, wondering how they can incorporate something like this moving forward. There we go, that's my first run thoughts in a Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 3. As I said, I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments below. A, if you plan on picking some up and you haven't yet, or if you have been lucky to get some from either this drop or the previous drop and how you feel about them. It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. If you're interested in seeing more super shoe testing, check out these 2 videos on screen. First one up here, the Nike Vaporfly 4. Second one down here, the Street Fly version 2. One of them is fantastic, the other not so much, and I'll see you guys over there.